Hey everyone, this is the Make America Strong Again project, where the focus is to get everyone we can in the health industry pulling in the same direction. Today we are talking to two gym industry vets, Rocco Boulay and Dennis Mathias. They've been in the health industry a long time and have seen it evolve from a box with stuff in it, as they put it, to the numbers chasing business it is today. They emphasize a return to the roots, to care about the members, and to deliver to them a message that we can help them get better. Let's dive in. This first slide, I really appreciated. So this is a slide of one of the earliest pieces of exercise equipment. Arthur Jones first introduced the Nautilus equipment in 1970. The first Nautilus machine to be sold was the Nautilus pullover. So, guys, what can you tell me about this machine? This is pretty cool looking.
Well, I think that Dennis and I are probably the only guys left alive that know what this machine looks like, and probably know this. There's a bunch of random veterans out there in the industry right now that would actually get chuckles out of seeing this. But yes, this was the very first piece that Arthur Jones released into the market way back in the early 1970s. It says 1970, but I'm not sure if it was 1970 or not. I was still actually. That was even before my gym day when that came into the market. So, but I remember using it. I remember how cumbersome it was. I remember just getting into the thing was it's quite a lot of work. So, today we've come a long way as far as the technology that the industry has built into the newer machines. But I could say that Dennis probably could talk about this a little bit more than I could. Dennis, what do you think about this piece of equipment?
All I can think of was my first year in the business in a gym. We had a secondhand circuit of this, and I spent my entire summer taking the entire circuit apart and oiling and tightening the chains. That's what I have to say about this. I think the only way you would know if somebody was there is if they could actually name the piece of equipment behind it. The great thing about this was, as archaic as it looks to us now, that Arthur Jones was so innovative in the gym business then. This was the first of the selectorized, quote unquote, type of equipment. People now know it as Nautilus or Cybex or that sort of thing. This was the first of that. And because we were coming out of the days where, again, it was iron and garages and muscle heads, and that's what it was. The people that didn't do that type of thing were kind of a little bit intimidated by weights. This is what gave those people that weren't weightlifting a reason to come to our gyms, if you will, because the weightlifters wanted nothing to do with this back then. Rocco, you can talk to that. You remember they thought this was the work of the devil.
Yeah, because we were so used to having, the molded barbells and dumbbells and things of that nature back then. TJ, I know you're still too young that you wouldn't know this stuff, but back then, the way that it was, you didn't join a gym back then. You belonged to one. It was a totally different atmosphere. Like, we all supported each other. We knew everybody's name that came in. So we had this small sense of like a cult, but we had the loyalty and the pride. We even had, back in the early days, and Dennis will be able to attest to this, everybody had like the World Gym or Gold's Gym t-shirt on or whatever. You kind of represented that little club that you were part of. Well, that was back in those days. And as we'll get through this cast a little bit, we'll talk through the evolution of what happened during those times. And Dennis, being in the actual management side of that through those years, will be able to talk to it even more, I guess, in depth than I can. But I was part of it as far as being a club member and also being a competitor during those days. So I was part of it, but I wasn't on the same side of the fence as Dennis was growing up. So,
That's interesting.
Go ahead, Dan.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so what this did, and then hop in, TJ. What this did was it opened up to a whole different type of person to come to our places. Prior to this,
Yeah.
you were, a musclehead, like Rocco said, with a gold shirt on. You wore the colors. golds or worlds, or and the sleeves were cut off, and the neck was cut out, and blah blah blah, and that was who came to these places. This opened it up to a whole other group of people to think about coming into it. So they were sluggish, and if you hopped on them now, you would, like Rocco said, you had to kind of get a running start to jump up into them. But they did set the stage for gyms to be more than just iron.
Yeah, and it really evolved too. Back then your trainers had clipboards with your name on it. There was no social media influence or any of that nonsense back then. You know, we didn't have really even mirrors for doing selfies. We had chalkboards with people's PRs on them that said, this is what Dennis did this week. This is what Marty did. This is what Joe did this week, and we would all compete in that kind of a almost like a community of people working out together. And we celebrated each people's goals and the things that we actually accomplished in the gym. Whether it was competing at a powerlifting competition or bodybuilding, we all were there. We all supported each other, and things have slightly changed since then, um, quite a bit actually, because the focus changed as well. You could probably add something to that too, Dennis. I'm sure.
Yeah, we will get into it, but I think what Rocco and I want to do is, at this point, set. We were there in the Stone Ages. We were there before the business was a business. Um, when Rocco and I got into it, we didn't have, and I got in as a trainer. That's how I started this business. I came in and I was going to be the world's best trainer. I was going to make everybody in the world healthy. That's guys like Rocco and I that got into this business back then. There was no career. There was no even Bally's, or certainly no Equinoxes or Lifetime. There was the the gym that in your area, and you went in to be a trainer in there, and that's all you wanted to be, was a trainer in your gym and help people get better. There was no thought of where we were going to do, where we were going to go, what we were going to do. We just truly came in to be better. And back then, and we'll get into this a little bit, that setup, and I hesitate to call it industry or business, but that setup was all about us, the trainers. The boxes were built so we trainers could come there and take care of the members. That's what we did. That's what we lived for. We walked in, and everybody that came into that, we grabbed everybody. Nobody was off limits. We grabbed everybody, and we were helping everybody, and we were right now, like Rocco said, walking around with clipboards and yellow workout cards and stickies,
Mm-hmm.
and everything manual you could think of. But the the in the business, whatever it was about us, the trainers, not about the stuff we had, because it wasn't much. You can see the stuff we had. That's not something that excites people. Okay, in the cardio area, there's a couple bikes, a couple treadmills, and then there were some ladies doing aerobics in the corner. But we couldn't sell stuff because we didn't have stuff to sell. We were about us. So just like you would build a medical center and then put doctors in it so people can come see the doctors. That's how this industry got started. It was really about the trainers and the work the trainers did, and helping the people get better that came in. And they came in expecting it. And nobody was afraid to walk into a facility. They weren't scared of it, even though over in the one corner you had a bunch of guys that barely fit in the door throwing weights around. It didn't matter. These people still came in because we were there to meet them and to help them. That's where this industry started. That was the roots. And guys like Rocco and I expected the industry to expand on that. We expected, like, okay, we get that, this is just our little corner gym, and if this closed, we probably have to go be a landscaper or something, because we didn't know what else we would do. But we kind of figured that somehow we would be able to make a living, because this was going to turn into a business, and it was going to be a business about trainers, because that's what it was about. And we would flow with it, and we would go to the next box, and they would build bigger boxes, but it would always be about the trainers.
Yeah, but I could add into that. Yes, it was about the trainers, but it was also about the people who were helping. That was part of what the business model we thought was going to be, which was, providing us with a bunch of people who wanted to get more healthy or more fit, and we were going to be the coaches that made that happen. That's how, in my mind, the industry should have gone down that road. Unfortunately, it had taken a 180 in the other direction, and we'll get into why it did that, because Dennis and I were also around for that too. You have any questions for us at all, TJ, at this point, or?
Yeah, the big question I have is why did that change happen? But I imagine, is that something you plan on covering kind of as we get into the slide deck?
Yeah, we will. Yeah, we will.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's an interesting transition you described, because obviously the fitness industry today is a lot different than what you described in the early days. Okay, we'll move on here. So the next slide, the roots of the fitness industry. So kind of as you guys were talking, health clubs were meant for transformation, not transaction. And some of the early focuses were exercise, nutrition, and coaching. And there was a shift to membership driven revenue, and that hurt long term results. Gyms became equipment rental spaces and not results driven hub. So talk about this a little bit, Rocco.
I think, I was there to watch that shift happen from membership driven revenue that hurt the long term results. And as a consequence, if you fast forward 40 years, you'll find out that all of a sudden the people who were disenfranchised by coming to a gym expecting that they were going to get healthy and fit were let down. And eventually we ran out of fish to fry because people were disappointed with what they thought they were going to get from their gym memberships at that time or throughout the course of time, and all of a sudden it was more focused on the membership versus the results. And Dennis will talk about this too, the outcomes that people were expecting, and then eventually I think many of the population have felt let down because, to our own fault, we did let them down to some degree, and we let the medical community take over a very big segment of business that they don't know very much about, and we do. And I think it's because a lot of the operators in the industry didn't realize the opportunity that we're trying to bring back with the Make America Strong Again movement, to get them to realize that we can get that market, and we can everybody can flourish and prosper with that market, including our customers. So I think I'll let Dennis talk on that too, because he lived through this as somebody who worked within the confines of the fitness industry, and be able to give you a much better description than I will. So,
Okay. Yeah, Dennis, what are your thoughts on that?
So Rocco really kind of gave the cover. So we already talked about how we started. We were, these little boxes and trainers, and we were all about people coming in and making sure we helped them and got them results, because that's what they were there for, and that's what we were there to deliver. I'd like to say there was some real strategy behind how I got from being a trainer to management, um, but I actually fell into it backwards. Um, I had the opportunity, to make a very long story very, very short. I was working at this little Hobunk gym in Edgewater Park, New Jersey, which the town is exactly what it sounds like, and had the opportunity to get started with with that point in time was a company called the Sporting Clubs of America, and they were one of the first ones to build the large 100,000 square foot mega club operations in Philadelphia, and I had the chance to get started. The issue was it was still in pre-sale, and the only way I could get locked into position there was do pre-sale memberships, which I wanted nothing to do with, but I also didn't want to blow the chance to be involved with this fantastic new idea they had. Um, so I did pre-sales with the intention of, like, as soon as this thing opens up, I'm hopping right back over to fitness. Lo and behold, the first month I sell memberships, I sell 100 of them. To this day, I have no idea how. I couldn't sell a heater to an Eskimo at that point. Um, the club opens up, and I'm drug into, um, into the sales end of it. Still wanted to do fitness, but then we get on our first national sales call, and we're coming up short on the first debt service payment. And all we talked about was we're not selling enough memberships. We're not selling enough memberships. And I learned very quickly that this business now had become about memberships. Um, and then Bally's uh, takes over the industry, and they are all about memberships. They had nothing to do with fitness. Their trainers walked the floor to get referrals, not really to help with training. And everybody saw the overwhelming success they were, and it took off from there. So the model, even when you were thinking about building a gym in your performa, you would you would you would project your membership levels even more so than ever any other line of revenue. So the business became about um, really all about could you sell enough memberships to maintain the box you built, whether it was a 20,000 square foot box, a 100,000 square foot box, whatever the case may be. What really expedited it was when these big mega boxes started getting built, and they were being built at $25 million, $30 million in the 80s, which was a lot of money. Um, their debt service was really um, overwhelming, and the responsibility of selling memberships just overtook the industry. It just simply overtook it. And training became a line item. It was a service that we provided, but every meeting was about sales. Every half of the presentations at our URSA meetings or URSA conferences were about sales. When you talk to every club, how many memberships did you have? So yeah, the industry when it became an industry became, and I tell people this all the time, we were a sales business. We were no longer a fitness business. Fitness was what we served at the table, but our business was all about sales. Did we make enough or didn't we? And that put the model in place, and we spent the next so many years finding ways to perfect that model until we realized as the industry got a little bit older, retention was also going to be a problem, which now meant sales were even more critical because we didn't realize that almost as many as we sold every month were going to leave. So now it was even more focused on sales, and training was even more kind of a benefit, which is why most clubs now will only hit about 3 or 4% of their membership. So Rocco's right. All of that thought we had getting into this, all of that altruistic, holistic drive that we had to make the world better, suddenly turned into who can make the most sales.
Yeah, I can see that. Okay, moving on to the next slide here. Here we talk about a broken system. I know this is a figure you guys have talked about before that less than 20% of gym members attend regularly. 30% hold memberships but rarely show up. 80% of the population doesn't belong to a gym at all. That was the figure that really blew me away. And then lastly, 230 million of the population are deconditioned, need better fitness, and are overlooked because we don't have the systems in place to serve them. So, Rocco, can you talk to this a little bit? What are your thoughts on how this breaks down?
Yeah, if you jump over to the next slide, I'll be able to kind of explain this. So if you
Yeah.
take a look at the chart on the left, the pie chart on the left, and you'll see that whole big circle represents the population in the United States, which is roughly about 330 million people. Their population of gym goers that actually have a membership, I should say, not goers, but have a membership is around 60 million, but only about a little over 8 million actually go on a regular basis. So one of the things we want to focus on with Make America Strong Again is helping fitness centers and operators not only get good with the people that they have that show up every single day, but why are the other ones that are paying for memberships not showing up? See, there's a double-edged sword here with operators, and operators will know this quite well. We call those the sleeping bears because we don't want to poke the sleeping bear. That other segment of inactive gym members that you can see that represents that orange slice,
Hmm.
If we call them and say, hey, Joe, why haven't you been using the club? You're reminding them that they're paying us and not using the club, right? What do you think the next thing is going to be that they're going to ask us?
If they can cancel their membership.
Bingo, right? So
Yeah.
that's why we don't want to poke the sleeping bear, is because once we open up that can of worms, that means that our EFT is going to drop down even more than what it already has. So there's a there's the business model right now. If you look at almost all of the HVLP models, they rely on those people who don't show up, because if the price is low enough, people are going to pay it, not really care too much, unless, of course, you call them. The higher your membership price is monthly. So if you're not, say, a $10 or $15 club and you're a $40 club, it's harder to call those people, because what ends up happening is that they're probably going to cancel. I would say that we have to do something in terms of the ones that are, at least the ones that are under contract, to get them back into the clubs, because we can do a search in the database. So if somebody's like an annual member that doesn't term out, say for another 6, 7 months, there's a opportunity to actually offer them something that they haven't had in the past, to get them back on and becoming regular gym users, to make them part of that little yellow slice. So increase that
Mhm.
yellow slice to a bigger slice than what the orange is, because that's where that particular segment needs to go. And before I go to the other deconditioned side, I'd like to ask Dennis if he wants to add anything onto that particular segment of the club members.
You nailed it pretty well. Yeah, it in club operations, in every budget year, we would have discussion. Do we switch from sales to retention? And so we would talk about that paying not using group. And we knew it was an Armageddon if we ever woke it up. Well, a pandemic actually caused that Armageddon, because we had to close clubs. We had to call all the people, everybody, ask them, we had to stop their dues because we were closed. And that 30%, that big slice, did everything we were afraid they were going to do. They went away. So we're going to talk about two items in this slide right now that are issues that we've been kicking the can down the road now for 35 years. Um, and actually, the two reasons I'm involved with MASA is because now that I'm not running a club, I can actually focus on these two things that we've been kicking down the road. One is, how do we get the people that aren't using the club using it more? We've talked about that ad nauseum for years, and we've never come up with an answer, and I think we have the answer. The other one we're going to get into on the next slide is the 80 percenters, and we've kicked that can down the road since the beginning of time. We've tried everything under the sun. We haven't gotten through to them. I think we can.
Yeah, so let
Um,
me
Go
identify
ahead.
that. Let me identify that, then I'll let you comment on that after that. So the other pie chart to the right is the total amount of deconditioned citizens in the United States. So that represents, out of the 330 million, 231 million. So, but we also did is I segmented it into BMI. So how far out of shape are these people? Okay. So if you look at the mustard colored ones, the overweight from 25 to 29% BMI, those people don't quite have health problems yet. When you take a look at the orange slice, or the mildly obese from 30 to 35%, okay, that segment of people represents about 160 million people. And Dennis has got to touch on that again. But see, if we had systems in place where we're a place where people go to get better, these are the people who need someplace to go to get better. You can't get better at the doctor's office. So the opportunity for the fitness industry is to take a look at that segment, have operations and protocols in place to be able to deliver some kind of a service to these people. One thing we do know, and this you'll find a billion studies out there that shows, and the reason why strength training has become so popular over the last year or two is because we realize in our industry that people who have metabolic disorders, which that pie represents nothing but metabolic disorder, that it can be fixed through resistance training, cardiovascular training, and better food. Okay. That can be treated with that without any medicine at all. I'm not saying that you can't have medicine, because that mildly obese, that could be your GLP-1 market right there. But if the GLP-1 market knows that there's a protocol in place that actually helps them to lose all their weight as fat and not any lean mass, at the end of their treatment, they're metabolically perfect again, versus what's happening right now is they're losing a fair amount of muscle along with their fat loss, that's causing a problem for them metabolically, and they may end up in a bad situation after everything is said and done. Now, I'll refer back to Dennis on this to maybe elaborate a little bit more on the medical part of this, because he's also worked on the medical side of that and sees the opportunity there as well. Den, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree, Rocco. So again, to finish, and thanks for quantifying that. So again, one can we've been kicking down the road is how to get the people that are paying us but not using us to do it. We think we have the answer to that. Um, the other part of this is there was a an article that went out from the CEO of Planet Fitness. She's only been there for about a year now, and she had a statement uh, in her article. It said her her competition is in other facilities. It's the market that has a fear to join our clubs. Now, I didn't like her use of the word fear. I kind of read between the lines of what she meant. It's that 80% of the market that we believe we haven't given a reason to come into our club. The 20% has been the same. Those are exercisers that are just looking for a place to exercise, and they have a reason to come into our facilities because they know they're going to get what they want. We just haven't gotten a message to those other 80% of why they should come into us. So people are going, okay, guys, what's the story here? What's this MASA thing, and how are you going to do this? We believe that if we can get the message, if we can get the clubs as an industry to come together and not see each other as competition, but see each other as benefits. Because no matter what anybody says, somebody that's going to join Planet Fitness for $10 is not coming over to my $150 club. And my $150 club members aren't going to Planet Fitness. We aren't competitors. Okay. If we all got together and said health clubs as an industry are a place to go to get better, then people look at the whole industry and can then segment their choice down. Say, okay, I know I can go to a health club to get better. Now, which one do I want to go to? I want to go have somebody I want somebody to make me something for dinner tonight. Okay, I got to go to a restaurant. Boom. The top of the pyramid is restaurants. Then I decide, okay, I want to go to a Five Guys burger joint, or I want to go to a Morton Steakhouse. I want to get better. I'm going to go to a health club. Now, what kind am I going to go to? And as long as the clubs are are providing a program that gets people better, we can get them in. So our objective here is to bring the clubs together in that message that they're places to go to get better. The 80%, if we can get them to understand that we're places to go to get better through a standard message, which is pretty much benign to every club. That's not something that every club can be a place to go to get better, every single one. Um, and as Rocco mentioned, I spent 10 years working for our health system, literally in the belly of the beast. I was working arm in arm with physicians, which is a lot different than what I did previous to that, which is talk to three physicians I knew and got what they thought. I had 300 physicians that were telling me exactly what they thought. Believe me, my ears would bleed, and they couldn't wait to tell a fitness guy what they thought. But the bottom line is, we figured out how to work together and bridge that gap of medical meets fitness in a very proactive way. So we have a model that is already proven that can drive those is another way to drive the 80% into the clubs. So if we're seen as a place to go to get better, physicians are going to welcome that support. The people, they're going to send the people to us. I've seen it done. And then the people that are sitting out there seeing now, because you can't turn to the left without seeing something about longevity and living better and living healthier, and we're all sick and none of us are going to make it to 2026. And that message is so loud right now. They just don't know what to do with it. They go to their doctor, and I said, I work for a health system. I know what a doctor's day is like. It's not that they don't want to talk about us. They don't have the time. They are dictated what they need to do and how much time they have to do it. And they don't have the time. And a lot of what's happening is these younger residents are coming into the medical world as exercisers. They believe in it. They want to send their people to it. They just don't have that place. We need to be that place. That's our goal. Our goal is to make that happen. Right, Rocco?
Yeah, right. And we have to have the protocols in place to deliver those health outcomes. And I know I saw somebody posted on one of your LinkedIn posts today saying, how are we going to address this market? Well, the first thing we have to do is have the protocols in place that can get the results that they're looking for. And yes, there's going to be the psychological aspects, there's going to be the privacy aspects, there's going to be the support systems that will be put in place for the more deconditioned people, but we have to have the place for them to go that they're going to get the results that they came for. So first and foremost, we have to start with a systemized approach to being able to do this. And then once the system is built, then we can add in all the amenities to make that happen for these people. So if you want to move to the next slide,
Let me just throw something. I'm sorry, Rocco. Let me just throw something in
go
here
ahead.
because
Sure.
this has to be said. Okay, and I get to say this because I was in the competitive club operations for a long, long time. All right, we can't survive off the 20% anymore. We just simply cannot survive. Okay, and unless we get into that 80%, there's too many people at the table. There's too many people sitting around the pond and not enough fish in it right now. And somebody's going to have to leave the pond or somebody's going to have to leave the table. No matter what people may or may not think about what we're trying to accomplish here, what they cannot disagree with is unless we get into the 80%, people are going to have to leave this business. I
So
don't want that to happen.
You're saying we should stock the pond.
We need to stock the pond. We need to put more fish in the pond. And
Okay.
we already see where they are on the left side. On the right-hand side, that's the can we've been kicking down, and we don't have to kick it anymore. We don't have to kick it, but we cannot do it in this continued silo. You made reference to that last podcast, TJ, about how the industry's working in silos, and it is. When you think about industry, we've got the HVLPs over here, and we got the mega clubs over here, and we've got the boutiques here, we've got the studios here, and we're working in these silos. We need to come together as a unity. We're all health clubs. We're all restaurants. You sell burgers, I sell salads, you sell sushi. That's fine, but we're all restaurants. We're all health clubs, and we get people better. But the truth of the matter is, if you're watching this and you have a club and you don't have investment capital sitting in the bank to help you get through the next couple of years or so, we need to all band together to go after that 80%. And I'm willing to spend my time. We are willing to spend our time and efforts helping the clubs get there, because I know what their day's like. They don't have time to think about this. We'll do the thinking. Just help us. Just get behind us. That's all we're asking right now.
Yeah, that's a great mindset. And one comment before we leave this slide, Rocco, this is a really interesting breakdown, specifically the pie chart on the right. It's astonishing to me that 231 million people are overweight on that spectrum all the way to severely obese. I mean, there's a lot of metabolic dysfunction and a lot of room for opportunity for
it's
to
shocking.
make people better.
It's shocking, TJ, and quite frankly, it's driving up the cost of healthcare for younger people like you. That's going to cost you a lot more.
Yeah.
And even people younger than you in the future. If we don't do something about it now, people are going to be 100% dependent on healthcare the rest of their lives, and they're not going to be able to afford to pay for it. So
That's
we
a
have
great
to do
point.
something. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. We'll go to the next slide here. All right. So here's something from Rocco's perspective, the missed market. So focus on the inactive gym users and overweight with the BMI of the 25 to 29.9 range and the mildly obese, BMI to 30 to 34.9. These segments need structure, simplicity, and results. The industry speaks to the already fit, not the fix needing as much. So that's where structured programs can bridge the gap with prescriptions, not access.
Yeah, and I mean, me and Dennis just knocked this around for quite a few moments, but that's really it. If you take a look at it, it's like being a lifeguard, okay? And let's just say a fitness coach, or I like to call them metabolic coaches now. That's just my terminology. And you're
Mm,
like a lifeguard sitting at the ocean, okay? And you're making sure everybody is doing okay. And then you have all of your healthy people that you don't have to worry about as a lifeguard, right? Then all of
right.
a sudden you have a few people out a little bit too deep. You've been at the beach where they blow the whistle and they're saying come back in.
Oh yeah.
That's the 25 to 29% of how I see them, okay? And then the ones that don't listen to the whistle, the ones that think they can get out into the tide, those are the ones that got in trouble. Those are the mildly obese. Those are the ones that the lifeguard has to jump on his surfboard and get down into the water and make a recovery for those individuals so that they can get back to shore. We want to focus on grabbing those people and bringing them back to the healthy side, because once we do that and we have more healthy people, a healthier cohort in the United States, healthcare becomes more affordable. Now doctors can focus on the ones that are more sick, that need a lot more attention that we can't give them. I hope that makes sense. Anything you want to add to that, Dennis?
No, I think it makes total sense. And I want to jump on the because you and I talked this around, and I'm probably maybe I'm a little more sensitive to this than the normal person because spending 10 years in a health system, I kind of wish I didn't know the things I know from the back rooms of healthcare. Here's what I do know, and we're already there. And I got to know some of these doctors personally. They're great people. We have been so wrong in our industry thinking that doctors don't want to talk about us, that doctors are all about sick care. It's so wrong. I'm not going to get into big pharma. That's a whole nother story. But doctors that I work with, they actually cared more about their patients than they did about their own family. Believe me, I, I found that out. But TJ, what's already here, and Rocco touched on, is going to get worse. There are already people that are unable to get necessary treatments because they can't afford them. The co-pays are too high and that sort of thing. I've already instilled this in my kids. I've told them they're going to have to instill it really hard in their kids. And physicians, if you know them and you can talk to them, will tell you the day will come when if you're in your 60s now or whatever the case may be, you might not be able to afford the care you need to stay healthy. And as Rocco has talked about, with metabolic disease taking over the health of our country, so much of that is preventable. But just like a retirement fund, you can't start saving at 62. You can't start taking care of your health at 65. We need to preach to, and I know the market's very keen on, the 25 to 20 somethings and the early 30 somethings, and we should be. But we should be spending the message that it's time to put into your health account, and you need to start now. And what Rocco's saying here is about structured programs and the industry taking accountability for giving these people the results. No different than a bank. If a bank tells you they're going to give you 10% return, they better give me 10% return on my money. If we're going to say we're going to help you we're going to get you better, we need to have programs that we know are going to get people better.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Well said, Dennis. Let's move to the next slide, TJ, so we can get through this within the hour that we have. So, can you read this off?
Yeah. So here's Dennis's perspective inside the machine. So early dreams of helping people get healthy, and reality is chasing quotas, fixing machines, and fighting attrition. Also found managers were unable to focus on member outcomes, and health clubs stuck in a 40-year model. You want to talk to
Yep.
that a little bit, Dennis?
Yeah, we hit on a lot of this, so I don't want to really waste everybody's ear time. We started out as an industry that was meant to get people better, and we turned into a sales machine.
Yep.
It's that simple.
It is that
Yeah.
simple. Hmm.
You know, why aren't we growing? Because we're still doing the same thing we've been doing for the last 40 years, except the delivery of fitness products now is exponentially grown. Not just clubs, but you have people, you have influencers online. People could,
Yeah.
there's so much volume of way to get fitness products now. The 20% can't do it. It just can't do it. And trying to sell features and money as we have for so many years doesn't doesn't move the needle on these new buyers. Money's not the issue. I own two millennials. I know how they think. Money doesn't move them. It's the experience they're paying. They're willing to pay to go Cancun for a great experience. They don't care about the cost. They care about the experience. I see my daughters and the gyms that they're joining. Dad doesn't know anything about it, so they don't ask him. But I see why they're doing it. I see why they're paying influencers to get their. They'll spend whatever it is to get that result. They're not. So they're not buying treadmills. They're not buying the nicest treadmills. They're not buying the biggest places. They're not buying it because it's only $10. They're buying it for what it'll do. And we're still selling gym treadmills and spaces and prices, and that it's gone. Those days are gone.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So moving to the last slide here. This is segment 4. So MASA as the new model. Rocco, can you take us through this one?
Yes, and I think Dennis will be able to also agree with this, from going from a membership driven model to a service model, and that service model would offer structured coach led programs so people aren't in the dark about what they're doing in there. It's amazing that people still walk into a fitness center and look around and they become intimidated by all the different pieces of equipment that are out there when technically using maybe 5 to 7 pieces of equipment is all you need to know how to do, but it becomes confusing and there's no one there to help them. So we have to
Yeah.
offer better support for those people. Train staff to be health allies, not just not reps for the company, because there's a lot of pressure being put on them to deliver monetarily and forgetting the purpose. And the purpose is people. And that's something that we have to bring back to the table, because without the people, we don't have the business. So you can try to hoodwink a gazillion people and you may get a few, but guess what? They become fewer and fewer and fewer over the last few decades. And there's nobody out there that can argue with that statement with me, because that's exactly what happened. We need to, as in step 3 here, we use scans and metrics to show people that they're not wasting their money and that their efforts are bearing some kind of fruit, so that the end of each particular training cycle for these people, that they get a progress report that says, hey, I did this good. And then that opens up the opportunities for the club owners to sell more training, to sell more supplementation if they do that, to sell protein, whatever it is that they're providing those people to get better, is that opportunity. Again, step number 4, which Dennis has a lot of experience with, is partner with doctors for true integration. So if people have diabetes and they're working on things like hemoglobin A1C or inflammation markers or lipids or whatever the case may be, these people can relate back to not only to their doctors but also to their coaches, and these guys can work in conjunction with each other to give a much better outcome for these people than what's available today. And last but not leastly, promote strength as a human value, because without strength as a community, as a nation, we're nothing, we're nobody. So we have to build the strength, and where do you build strength the best is at fitness centers. And I think that's the way that I see it. And I feel like if we can do that, there's no more division as this country. This is not a political movement that we're doing. This is a movement for people, by people, to make people better, regardless of where you stand politically, because we don't look at it that way. We look at it as us as a whole, as a nation. And I think Dennis feels the same way, because we've chatted a lot, as you know. Dennis and I have become pretty good friends over the last year or so, and we see things eye to eye, and I think this is the reason why we're doing this, is we want to give something back. You want to add to that, Dan?
Yeah, and now I'll talk like the gym manager. Um, it, we're not looking to change that 40-year model. We can't. Okay. If you were telling me that when I was running a club, I would say, okay, thanks. Nice talking to you. Leave your business card at the front desk. We're not looking to change that because we need that 20% to keep us afloat. What we're working on here is a way to enhance that without, without having an impact on the operations that keep after that 20, because those 20% are exercises that are going to keep coming, they're going to keep paying, so we'll take that. We want to enhance it. How do we enhance it? I'm going to cut this down to the really simple things. What's the one thing that sold every single fitness product that has ever been successful since the beginning of time? The one thing: results. Why did people buy something called the Thigh Master long before your day, TJ? Somebody sat there and squeezed this thing between their legs. The person squeezing it was Suzanne Summers, very attractive female actress. Why did people buy a Thigh Master, which was the dumbest concept in the world? Because they thought it would make her look like Suzanne Summers. Okay. Why did people buy P90X? Because they thought they would look like Tony Horton. So people buy results in this business. That's what they want. Whether it's health results, whether it's aesthetic results, whatever it is, results are results. We need to be able to provide that. Now, I can tell you as an operator, you talk to me and I go, oh, yeah, but I got 300 new people come in. How do I do that? We have the answer to that. We'll get into that as we go down. We do have the answer to how to scale delivering results, unlike anything I've ever seen in the 40 years. I wouldn't be involved in this if we didn't have the answers to the questions. So, and results is not just for the market that's going to walk in. If you're going to work with physicians, whether you're physical therapy, occupational therapy, cardiac rehab, or a fitness program, there is one thing doctors expect of every single one of us: outpatient services, outcomes. In the medical world, it's called outcomes. They send you to physical therapy, you better send them back better. You send them to occupational therapy, you better send them back to the doctor better, or he's not sending them there anymore. So if we're driving results, we're going to get the people that aren't coming from the doctors, and we're going to get the doctors to send people because we're getting their people better. So bottom line is, we're about creating a message for clubs that clubs are here to help people get better. Everybody in the country, in one way or another, can get better at something. We want them to think of us when they do that. And how do we do that? We put programming in that almost guarantees that they're going to get results once they're there. That's what MASA is about. Bring everybody together in the same room. I don't care if you're Planet, Lifetime, Equinox, I don't care who you are. We can all say, come here and get better. And Rocco highlighted the strength. Every single gym everywhere in the country, unless you're a group fitness Pilates studio or something, has strength equipment. And you can get behind the message of strength being making you healthier metabolically and to ward off all these diseases that are taking over the country. This is something that it could get behind. As a manager, I didn't have the time to think about this. I just had the time to get through fixing my stuff that was broke that day. So now as a manager, I'm not being a manager anymore, but I'm going to think like one. And with the help of these guys, I'm going to bring to the table what I would want as a manager to make my business better. So, yeah, Rocco nailed it with those 5 in a row. We follow that path. We got the answers. We're going to talk about them in future segments. You're not going to put it all out there now because this has been talked about. Rocco and I have been talking about this for a year now. This is the culmination of a year of discussions of at all kinds of days and times and nights and all that sort. Rocco knows he's getting posts from me at 3 o'clock in the morning because I wake up with something.
I said, go to bed.
Um, this is like Rocco said. We want to give something back to something that gave us an entire adulthood, and we're going to do that.
Any other last questions for us, TJ?
I don't think so. I think thank you both for coming on. This has been really interesting, kind of sharing the evolution of fitness, where it's come from, what it's gotten to, and also how to make it better. Do you guys have any final thoughts you'd like to share?
I'd like to say, for to the people in the fitness industry who sit up in the C suites and the ivory towers that, maybe taking a walk down into your fitness centers and actually talking to your customers and not letting the managers or your team do that and finding out what they really think about what your business is like and satisfy their needs. Listen to them. Do some of the things that they're requesting so that they feel like they're connected on a level that goes from the bottom right to the top. I think it has to start there, and fitness centers need to evolve from being like, I don't know, equipment providers into, community health sanctuaries where people can feel like this is the place that I need to go and feel welcome to do that. And once we can deliver the outcomes, this isn't just about making America strong again. It's really redefining what strength means for all of us, not just the fit few that we talked about earlier. Because when we can do that, then we have a country who's all on board with the same mission, the same goal, and the same successes. That's what I would say. Dennis, if you want to add to that.
All I want to add, I think people got the message. If the people that are watching is saying, okay, so now what do I do? We can't do this on our own. We're we're going to do the heavy lifting. We're going to put this together. We're going to make this digestible for any club manager operator to absorb. What we need is to know you're behind it. For MASA to try and do this on their own and in their own silo, we can't get that done. Here's what we need you to do. It's not going to cost you anything. We're not asking for money. We're not asking you to sign anything, and we're not going to sell you anything. Go to our website. Just reach out to us. The first thing we want to do is we want to see that clubs are behind this effort. That clubs will go, okay, yeah, I'll ride along. We're not going to ask you to do anything other than say, yeah, I want to be a part of delivering the message that my club is a place for people to go to get better. Once we have enough clubs that are willing to just say, yeah, we're a club that you come to get better, we're going to put that page on our website. Here are clubs that are where you can go to get better, and you don't have to do anything at this point. That's coming later down the road. What we're trying to do is brand this message for the entire industry. I'd love to see on that list Planet, Lifetime, Equinox, you know, uh, um,
Yeah. Are
Orange
you for the
Theory.
Yeah. Are you for the people or are you for the money? We just want to know which side of the aisle that you're on. I
Yeah,
agree with you, Dennis, 100%. It
yeah.
makes a lot of sense. Get up and support the mission of what this is. Um, Lastly, I just wanted to make a quick note to you, TJ, too, that our next episode is going to have Pete McCall, who's a exercise physiologist, strength coach from the West Coast, trainer of the trainers. He's going to come on and talk about how the evolution of the fitness industry is going to be from the coaching side. And also, Eric Reed's going to be back on talking about how he's actually implemented these protocols into his clubs and how he's become successful at being able to service the customers that we're talking about right now. And I think it'll be a pretty interesting episode. I just wanted to mention that before we got off the air because I thought it was important to let people know what the next the step is along the way for the Make America Strong Again campaign is.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Well,
thanks for the reminder. Go ahead, Dennis.
well, I'm sorry, just real because I'm glad Rocco brought that up, and just be real quick. We're not just about the clubs. We believe that the trainer we need to put a focus on the trainers again.
Mm-hmm.
That we need to make
The
their
trainer is important
job
again,
important.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, honestly, true. We need to make the trainers important again. We need to make them feel important. But what we have to understand is they don't know what they don't know coming into this business, and it is our job to get them prepared to do that. So part of again, this is why it's going to take a whole bunch of episodes. Part of our strategy is creating a environment where trainers can thrive, can be what they thought they got into the business to be. Um, Hopefully, make some more money, um, and be able to make a career out of doing this, being doctors of exercise. That's what every trainer wants to be when they get in this. So thanks, Rocco, for bringing that up. Next week's segment
No, thank
is
you.
just our first step into letting people know this just isn't about clubs. We've also put a lot of discussions into how do we make this better for trainers. Because if we're going to get to making people better, trainers are going to be the ones that are making people better. We need
Mm-hmm.
them to be great. And for them to be great, we need to give them an opportunity to be great in. And
Let's go, coaches.
yeah, let's go get them.
Well said.
Awesome.
Absolutely. Well, thanks a lot, guys. Really appreciate having you guys on. You guys give great perspective as always. So everyone else, tune in next week. We got Pete McCall and Eric Reed on an awesome episode. Can't wait to talk to those guys. They're going to have some cool stuff to tell us. So we'll see you then. Bye,
See you,
everybody.
TJ.
All right, thank you.